It's going to hopefully answer the question, how do you conduct an interview? This quote on page 105 particularly stood out to me, and it said that qualitative interviews are thus a special kind of knowledge-producing conversation that occurs between parties. And this is important because qualitative interviews are different than quantitative interviews. And this model really represents the difference. In the interview process, a quantitative model of the interview is really one-way information travel. The interviewer asks a question, and the respondent provides an answer. There's really no give and take in this type of a conversation. In fact, the interviewer really needs to avoid too much conversation to ensure that the data that's collected is fair and not tainted by any views or opinions from the interviewer. On the other side, with the qualitative model, this is really a give and take where there should be some sort of conversation. And this, they called it a co-creation of meaning, meaning that both parties are important in the conversation about the topic. While you're doing your interview, it's important to watch out for markers. Markers are very important because they allow the researcher to know that the interviewee has more information to share. A marker is really some sort of sign or action that the participant shares that lets you know they want to share more but aren't sure if they should share more or not. So while conducting your interview, it's really important to take notes related to the markers. You'll want to consider how the respondent's mood contributes to the message that you're hearing. And you also might want to note anything you think might have impacted the interview in a negative way. Notes will hopefully help you remember what happened during the interview. Furthermore, it's also important for the interviewer to take notes regarding your own personal emotions and feelings during the interview. During this time, you should and might also want to consider looking for social cues that would just mean behavior that you observe from your interviewee. So if you notice a marker or just want to probe farther, probes are a very powerful tool in the researcher's toolbox. Probes are also critical to a good interview, and it is important to be able to distinguish between when a marker has been dropped that you want to pick up on and when you should probe further into an interviewee's response. Probes can be as simple as a head nod or a sound, or when the interviewer says things like right or please tell me more. Probes are important in the qualitative process because when doing a qualitative interview, you want to get as much information as possible. And sometimes the interviewees don't come out with all that information, even though they do want to share it. Don't let the differences get in the way. This section of my chapter really stood out to me, so I'm going to put 3 questions on the screen, and I really just want you to silently think about each of them. Now, to be honest, philosophically, you would think that anybody could interview anybody, but it really is important for a researcher to acknowledge the differences between 2 parties and any impact that might play. To be honest, if I was going to be interviewed by somebody in a really nice suit and I walk in my street clothes, it might put me off a little bit. So it's important to know who you're going to be interviewing and what you can do to help bridge the gap. When you take into account all the differences, you're really maximizing objectivity, which is helping to ensure that the participant's voice is heard by making them feel more comfortable in the interview process. You can accomplish this by meeting in a comfortable place or hoping to pair the interviewer with your interviewee. And this is where insider or outsider status comes into play. The insider status would be someone who belongs to a certain social group, whether it be male or female, straight or gay, or a race. If you're an insider in that group, there's automatically going to be some level of trust. And if you're an outsider, it's important to take that into consideration when forming your questions and beginning your dialogue. So, that's what I have to share for planning and conducting your interviews.